Hi there YouTube, Extreme Trains here. So in this video we're doing a bit of an unusual review, and that's because off the back of the Motorised 80th anniversary classic style engine reviews, I wanted to go back and pick up some of the AEG engines, because one of the things that I observed in that review was just how big those engines were, and what I wanted to get a sense of was whether that was just something they've done in this recent wave or how that interplayed with the AEG sets. So I picked up this one here, which is the Percy and Brake Car Bruno 3-pack for two reasons, one of which is now no longer relevant, and that'll make sense in a future video. One of them was because I wanted to see what these engines were like in terms of sizing, and I got Percy because I don't currently have a Percy in the new classic style yet. Second reason was because it had a nice piece of rolling stock. That troublesome truck looks nice and will go well with some of the new style engines because it's not super AEGized. And thirdly, and I realized I said two earlier, it comes with Bruno, who I haven't been able to pick up in the metal engine line, or at least I hadn't at the point in time which I bought this Percy. So what are we waiting for? Let's crack them open, do a bit of a review, and have a bit of a comparison to some of the new classic engines. So very quickly, you'll see that Percy is in the new style of box, and I may say new, I mean it's the same one that the classic motorized engines are in, and it's got that motorized branding on the side there, and it's also got this kind of cutout section on the top. The older style boxes kind of had a more uniform shape along the top. You can see there again, very classic, the box. You can see we've got that little Thomas with the barcode, noting that this is the AEG version versus the classic version that was on the 8th anniversary motorized stuff. Also this barcode, which I love. Don't know why there's two barcodes. Random. More legal blah blah, not very useful stuff. Turning around on the back. And as per always, no useful information. Look for our show, which is apparently over. So as I've talked about in previous videos, there's quite a few people now talking about the boxes of these are pretty rubbish. Let's crack Percy open and take a look at what's inside. All right, let's take a look at Percy. First thing I'd say is it feels very light for something this large. Yeah, something about the fact that I think because it's so large and relatively hollow, it feels very light. Just doing a little spin. Yeah, look, I mean, it's Percy. I think that's an interesting Percy face. We don't have any buffer detail as per usual. We've got the all engines go style rolling board like this. The cab is on a very slight lean, but it's much less than the lean that you see on the push-along version. But then his funnel is like really bent back here, so that's interesting. You've got the separate plastic parts that form the whistle and the dome. Number 6 here on the side. We've got the little coal bunker piece on the back. There's that. These outrageously long couplings, which are just, again, I don't really understand what they're for. And you can see then we've got the little motorized chassis section on the bottom. So all in all, it's fine. It's a bit basic, but you know, it's Percy. Then we've got this troublesome truck, and you can see here that this is, I think, what we would say is the older style of design. So it has this little nothing inside. This just sits on the top there. Quite clever way to make it look full when it's not. For a little comparison, this is how this truck compares to this one. You can see they're very similar sized, but it is a different mold. Particularly those little details there make a different mold, and there's no face, which I just think is a huge fail. Troublesome trucks without faces are just, they're just not right in my view. And you can see again, this is the difference between this new style of truck for the classic versions versus the older style with both the cog wheels and those kind of filled in chassis sections. And then last but not least, we have Bruno, and again, he feels very light. Kind of a bit cheap and nasty feeling, if I'm being totally brutally honest. Details are fine. I think we've got all of the important details we need to have here printed on. Got a nice face. I like how they are looking at each other if you have them coupled up. So he's looking to this side and Percy's looking to that side, which is the same side if, you know, Percy's at the front. It's a nice touch. I don't know if it was on purpose or by accident, but that's what it is. We don't have any buffer detail, unfortunately, but we do have his little lamp painted, which is nice. Wheel configuration is not quite right, not enough wheels, but that's classic for this style of toy. And then we've just got the usual coupling system here. And then again, on the bottom, some interesting stuff going on there with this. I don't know why it's got that textured section on there, but that is what it is, I suppose. So let's do some quick comparisons of this Percy. All right, so you can see we've got here the classics Thomas, and then next to him, the Percy. So you can see, yes, Thomas is large, and you can see I did some comparisons to the older Trackmaster style in the review of this engine. But yeah, Percy's still even larger, which is wild to me. It's so wild. But I mean, it does give you a sense of this is kind of how large the classics Percy is going to be, and the Duck presumably are this bigger size. But yeah, there is something just insane about how big. I mean, these feel much bigger because the details are much bigger. You've got a much bigger face, you've got a much bigger boiler, everything is just kind of blown up. But interestingly, what I will say is I think the proportions on these engines work better, even though they're bigger and more crazy, because it's already a crazy design, as in All Engines Go is already kind of this crazy, everything's wacky and out of proportion. Whereas you do get the sense that these wheels are not properly scaled with these designs because they're trying to be much more proportionally accurate. And again, if you kind of, you know, just had Thomas like this, and you go, wow, so proportionally accurate, and then you come to the wheels and they're just not quite right. You know, as people saying, the wheels don't quite line up with the spudger. Like, it's not quite right. They need to be scaled up just a tiny bit. And that becomes much more obvious with these models because they are so much more correct in terms of scaling. Whereas if you come to these ones, because they're already so naff and crazy, it doesn't seem to matter as much. So yeah, that's that. In summary, what do I think about this little set? I think it's a fine set. I mean, if you don't like All Engines Go, you're not going to like it. I think it comes with some interesting rolling stock, and I'm glad to see that we're getting Bruno released in more things, which is nice, and also just a nice piece of generic rolling stock that could form part of a train. But that said, you know, again, these packs for the price are quite good. I got this one on discount, so I think it was $16, which is nice. But I mean, you know, it is what it is. It certainly doesn't have the quality of the metal engines in my view, and it's definitely got a cheaper feeling. It's certainly a cheaper feeling toy than maybe this line used to be in previous years. But I'll leave that for you to decide. All right, thanks very much for watching. That's all I've got time for. This is Extreme Trains.